This video was sent to me because of all the bullshit that Sargon is. I don't know if you've seen it. If you have a Twitter, Sargon has been ban avoiding on his Twitter at Greenwood Outlaw. He's LARPing as a fucking Robin Hood and also as anti-socialist at the same time, as if taking from the rich and giving to the poor isn't exactly what redistribution of wealth is already, but of course he doesn't understand that. Thank you, Singing Reaper, for gifting one to Tyoshal. You're beautiful. So anyway, Sargon has had this weird hard-on for Shuon Head his whole life. I think he's in love, but he's also negging her, and it's just really sad to see. And so this is Short Fat Otaku's, I guess, video on this where he says that they're both wrong. So I guess they're both wrong. So let's get illuminated by heightened centrism, chat. Sargon is in the comments of this video, by the way. We'll look at it. We'll look at it in a little bit. Sargon and Shuenhead are both wrong by Short Fat Otaku. Okay. Jeez.
This is a video I actually once recorded and am now re-recording because basically Shuenhead did her stream on Sargon last night, and if I'm going to be honest about this topic, I'm going to have to incorporate some of what she said into the original script. And the original script started something like this. Sargon and Shu are both wrong. And they're wrong in different ways for different reasons, but they're both wrong. For those of you who don't know, this is about some ongoing drama, and I'll have the videos for both of them linked in the description if you want to go back and check it out for yourself. Now, when watching those previous videos, I realized that Sargon believes he has stayed exactly the same in terms of his overall political views and his principles.
He has absolutely gone further right.
Spun off radically left into communism. Meanwhile, Shu says she's stayed the same in her principles, while Sargon is going far right.
Shu has not said that she's stayed the same. What? Shu hasn't claimed that she stayed exactly the same. Unless you mean like that she was a Bernie supporter. She's supported Bernie since 2016 or earlier, but she's openly talked about how.
You'll be shocked to know that.
Well, interrupt me then.
Voting Trump this year. Lol.
No one's shocked. Thank you, Need Buffalo Wings, for the weed number. I appreciate you. I am not shocked that Dave Rubin is voting for Trump. Yeah, it's. Shu has talked openly about how she has made changes in her own, like the way she talks about things, specifically in regards to like intersectionality, feminism, trans people, just the whole bunch of stuff. Her language has gotten to the point where she's focusing more on you know, I guess being a little more kind and understanding than you know, the anti-feminist version of everybody in 2015, 16 and stuff. So yeah, I think we should give credit where it's due. She's done a lot of growth, and I think she's not perfect. Neither am I, and I don't think anybody else is. But she's definitely way better than fucking Sargon is. I don't even think that's close.
This is the progression of Sargon's political compass. I know it looks like shit. I pulled it off of his videos. As you can see, back in 2015, he was libertarian left of center, and now he is libertarian right of center. And here's Shu's political compass. In 2015, she was libertarian left of center, and now she is significantly more libertarian and significantly more left.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that when you look at both of these, you realize that they started in the same place. And it's probably why they were such good friends in 2014 and 2015. But after the massive reorientation of the political landscape, due to basically Brexit and Trump in 2016, you can see they both shifted. And it looks like they both shifted in about an equal measure.
So I would argue that Sargon is not down here if he answers questions honestly. I would like to actually watch that stream. Did we watch that at all? Anybody? Because I don't know what values Carl has to put him in the libertarian quadrant. Sargon's never been a leftist. This doesn't mean leftist. Leftists are like down here in this corner. That was just left of center. Yeah. This is not the case. For the record, people are putting out stupid compass tests like Trump is like up here, which is not the case. He's like here-ish. I don't know. Leftists are off the standard compass. Well, sure, but I mean, like, not really. I mean, kind of. It depends on which one you're doing and how you look at it. But yeah.
Which is probably why they both believe the other person has changed wildly while they haven't changed at all. The actual truth is they've both changed an equal amount. Oh, by the way, just for comparison's sake, this is my political compass. The blue is where I would have been had this test existed back in like 2007, and the red is where I have been for nearly the past decade.
Ugh.
Now, some people would say that the fact that I've stayed where I am for as long as I have means that I'm still living in the past, or I'm stagnant or something.
What's with this slant away from libertarianism?
However, I don't think so. I think it's that I've done a lot of reading, and I've come into some very firmly held beliefs that aren't going to be swayed by the politics of the day. But we've got Shu talking about how Sargon is now far right, and Sargon's talking about how Shu is far left. And I think to really get a grip on the situation, we have to ask the question, what is the left? Because there are sometimes people who tell me that I'm far right, or I'm right wing or something. And then I ask them, well, okay, what do you think the left is? Like,
well, okay. I don't know anything about this guy's political beliefs because I don't pay attention to him, okay? So I guess we'll find out. But where you're at on the political compass, according to the political compass, would put you further to the right than anyone that considers themselves a progressive. So, yeah. That's why you're getting that. Because you are... I mean, at best, it looks like Blue Dog Democrat. Like, that's not very far left.
What do you think the left edge on the center is? What is the rightmost political opinion that is still on the left that you can hold? And these people almost inevitably say dismantling capitalism, which means that they...
No. That's not... The most right-leaning opinion you can have and be on the left is dismantling capitalism? What? What? This is not what leftists talk about. Leftists talk about, like a right-leaning... Relative to other leftists, a right-leaning platform is not whether or not to dismantle capitalism. People want to dismantle capitalism. It's more about what aspects of capitalism are you keeping. Like, I don't think you could get a population of people to be selfless enough to accomplish what we need to do to get to anarchy or communism or anything like that, right? You may disagree. I disagree with that. I don't think we're capable. So the incentive would be for us to have some form of currency or whatever to incentivize the things that are hard that need to be done for a modern civilization. And that would only be for a period of time to where you could move the social zeitgeist to the point where you don't need that anymore, right? But I don't think we're capable of it. So it needs to be for some time as you sort of wean yourself off of the idea of how compensation works and the expectation. It's drilled into our brains that if you do X and it is difficult, you should be compensated X plus difficulty. Like that's the point, right? And that's why we advocate for increased wages under capitalism as we move towards a wageless society, is because we understand and we agree that it makes someone feel a lot better if they're valued. Like having an actual stakes, for instance, leftists will say, and I agree with it, that you should, for instance, if you're an Amazon employee, you should get a portion of the profit of Amazon because you're part of the reason that it's such a profitable thing. Not just your wage. There should be like a portion of the workforce, like the workers itself should get minimum. I mean, they should probably get most of it, but I mean, like, I would love to start at 50%. 50% of the profit goes to the fucking employees of Amazon. Think about that. That'd be amazing. Instead of Jeff Bezos. Why? He's not innovating. I don't know. It's just really stupid. I'm fine if the people that are innovating at the top and that You take some risk. I understand under capitalism, it's going to be very hard to talk people out of giving that person money. So I'm willing to make some. I'm willing personally, as a pragmatic approach, to make some concessions insofar as what we give like a CEO. But the amount of compensation CEOs are given is disgusting, and so you can either have a well compensated CEO that's not a billionaire, which is what I would vote for. Or you can not have CEOs at all, and it just goes all the way to the workers, which is really what it's about, right? So it's a stepping stone process. Anyway, that's what leftists actually argue about, is like which stepping stones are appropriate and in which order as we move towards a society that has no use for capital anymore, because that will eventually happen. As you run out of reasons, especially with automation, especially with climate, especially with just in general, just kind of post scarcity and how that works. The general trend is away from human labor, and so you have to reconcile that. That's what we're talking about.
I have to think that Shuon Head's social democrat policies of keeping capitalism intact, but using taxation to maintain a broad safety net, which, by the way, are also my ideal policies, those people have to think that that's right-wing somehow, because capitalism's still intact. Meanwhile, people on the right have called me an actual communist because of my support for those social safety nets. And I know that, left and right changes based on the Overton window. I know, for example, the serfs called me right-wing because even though I held positions that were leftist 20 years ago, I haven't changed, and they believe that history is supposed to go more leftward over time, which just isn't the case. So
It objectively is the case. I mean, by any standard whatsoever. Historically, as you move linearly in time forward, political opinions move left. That's not an argument. You literally, it's progress. It's just how it works. It's just how humans operate. What are you talking about? Literally, yes. It always moves left. Always. 100% of the time.
It really sounds like left and right are too nebulous to be used.
I mean, this man reported people on Twitter to ICE. This guy did? I don't know anything about him. That's fucking wrong.
However, I think I've come to the root of the problem. The left-right political spectrum came out of the French Revolution.
This guy needs the Enlightenment to talk about this? All right.
And its original meaning was in relation to hierarchy. At this time, the right wing believed that hierarchy was innately destructive, while at the same time being inevitable. So the point of human politics was to understand and accept the natural hierarchies of the world, but to not create any more man-made hierarchies than were absolutely necessary.
That's not what right wing is. That's not... This is a fundamental misunderstanding of what right and left means. This is not, no. Hierarchy is a necessary... This is what he thinks right-winging is. Hierarchy is a necessary evil. It is therefore best to limit man-made ones and accept natural ones. First of all, what is a natural hierarchy in human society? We're not talking about the fucking food chain here. We're talking about actual hierarchy. What's a natural hierarchy? Do you agree that, white people had manifest destiny, in which case that would be considered natural? Okay, that's not very fucking... That's not good. The right doesn't talk about hierarchy. The fact that they don't talk about hierarchy is the reason that man-made hierarchy is the problem. They don't discuss hierarchy. They believe it is innate. They believe hierarchy is so innate that they don't even fucking discuss it as an issue. This is why we have such a fucking fight between the left and the right, because the left, specifically leftists or lefties, progressives, talk about unjust hierarchy. The right doesn't even value that phrase as a valid thing to discuss. They never talk about hierarchical structures ever. This is not reality. Let's see what he says about left wing.
This is why you had both your small government types,
No.
as well as your monarchists and loyalists on the right, because they believed that the monarchy was a hierarchy of the natural world, wherein divine right came from God, and so the hierarchy was God, kings, nobles, and peasants. The left wing, meanwhile, had a different relationship with hierarchy. They believed hierarchy was just as destructive as the right wing did. However, they believed that hierarchy could be tamed by human intervention. While the right wing...
Are you going to put anything out there? Munritter. Man, homeboy can just make up his own ideas for what right and left means. I mean, even in the scenario of the French Revolution, his dichotomy of the right, like they just want hierarchies and the left just didn't want hierarchies. The French Revolution was about resources and food. And like it wasn't in the opulence and the excess, yes, of the higher up hierarchies, but like not hierarchies in general in that way. Like they bring up, I mean, obviously they bring up the bourgeoisie and stuff like that. Like there's a difference, but it's not that the hierarchy existing is necessarily inherently bad. It's that the hierarchy is invalid and there needs to be a different hierarchy. Does that make sense? This isn't this I taught the French Revolution, so this is kind of hurting me. This is a very rudimentary take on how one would describe the French Revolution, in my opinion.
Did not believe in constructing a man-made hierarchy because hierarchy itself was destructive. The left wing believed that if humans could replace natural hierarchies with man-made hierarchies, they could control them for people's wider benefit.
By creating a monopoly on all hierarchy, we can end all oppression. Holy fucking shit. This is not how people talk, not how French revolutionaries talked about hierarchy.
Their philosophy was not to avoid hierarchy because it's destructive, but to harness hierarchy and make it constructive. This had the strange effect of not only having the monarchists, the anarchists, and the proto-libertarians all on the right wing, but also the socialists and the fascists on the left wing.
Oh my god, dude. He just said the fascists were on the left wing. Oh, in the French Revolution, the fascists were the people they were fighting. They were literally the authoritarians. I can't. I want to die.
Because both socialism and fascism seek to create a centralized, planned society.
No! Socialism does not require a planned society. He doesn't know anything. Why does he not know things? This is so bad. I thought he was going to be good. This is bad.
Which is completely in line with the 1800s leftist philosophy of replacing natural hierarchy with man-made hierarchy. And although it sounds very strange to us nowadays because on the modern left-right political spectrum, we put fascism as far right, but Georges Valois, France's first fascist of any note, began his political career as an anarcho-syndicalist. He viewed fascism as left-wing and as coming out of his own experiences with socialism.
Okay. So he was an idiot. Here's me citing this guy. Okay, so he was stupid. What left-wing belief system do fascists have that they share with anyone on the left? You could argue, so that's why there's an axis here and there's not a left-right. It'd be up or down. He's more authoritarian. Are you saying he's a tanky? Because he's not it doesn't make any sense.
And he saw fascism as the natural extension and inheritor of the Jacobin movement from the late 1700s. Oh my god, dude. The Jacobins were one of the most radically left-wing revolutionary groups within the French Revolution. They were a group of working-class Paris citizens that played vital roles during the French Revolution. Of course, the modern conception of the left and the right has completely lost all of this nuance, mainly because after it became popularized within the French Republic, the Americans picked it up, and as the
Okay. This is a problem that we need to talk. I guess we need to talk about this. So I thought it was Jacobin, but I guess I could be wrong. But so here's their ideology, and let's just bring this up so you can look at it better. Here they are. Jacobinism is an ideology developed and implemented in the French Revolution. In the words of François Furet in Penser la Révolution Française, I don't know, fucking French. Jacobinism is both an ideology and a power, a system of representation, a system of action. Ideology represents blah, blah, blah. Here's 6 characteristics. Omnipotence of the state. Okay. Step 1, wrong. Omnipotence of the state. Okay. No. Despotism of Paris, colonialism, cultural genocide, rejection of the social contract, federalism, hypocrisy, lies, talk, blah, blah, blah. So, what you want here, they had some populist shit going on. There's a, oh my God, this is actually not a very good article on Jacobism. Supporter of a centralized Republican state and strong central government powers, and supporters of extensive government intervention to transform society. See, this is not really what a lot of anarchists want. Like this sort of like strong central government type shit. It's more like Wachabin. True. It's how do we talk about this? This is a situation where they thought that they could self-govern themselves with much more power than the traditional hierarchical structures in France prior to that, which was basically divine right, bloodlines, royalty, nobles, stuff like that. So they just went strong in the opposite direction of being like, well, maybe we'll just subjugate you back. This is not far left wing. If anything, this is like authoritarian centrism. Really, it's just upper middle. This isn't really left wing. It is pretty radical, though. It is pretty radical as far as how far towards authoritarianism it is. But
Americans like to do, they completely watered it down beyond any and all actual meaning. Thanks, America. So now modern-day political discourse is basically just shit-flinging over who's left, who's right, who's far left, who's far right. No, you're actually the radical one. No, you're actually the radical one. When most of it is just a complete misunderstanding. However, not all of it. And this is where we actually talk about the specific things where Sargon and Shu are wrong. During Shu's stream, she mentioned she didn't understand the link between communism and woke shit. And I don't think Sargon did a very good job at explaining it necessarily. So maybe I can do it in more layman's terms.
I don't understand her objection to woke politics without also not being a communist.
what?
Now he's like, I don't understand how you can reject woke shit and also not be a communist?
What?
Where the fuck did that come from?
I agree. I have no idea.
I thought the entire thing was, we are on the left, but we're bothered by some things on the left.
Woke shit is the application of Marxist theory.
Oh, God! No! Why is he this way? Why is he so stupid? Woke shit. You know when Marx wrote about, like, pronoun usage? Fucking Marx. Talking about pronouns. Goddamn Marx. Talking about Black Lives Matter, like some sort of fucking SJW. Jeez, Marxist theory, fucking crushing it over here in gender abolition. Shut the fuck. This guy's so stupid. This is not what woke is.
To vectors of oppression beyond simply class. Now, Shu says that he doesn't mind being called a class justice warrior.
So vectors of oppression other than class, but you use Marxism to talk about it. No one, you don't have to be a Marxist to understand, like, hey, someone is marginalized. I'm going to make sure that that person feels less marginalized. That's the whole thing. That's the end of it. It's the beginning and end of it. That's all of it. There's no more of it. If someone is marginalized for whatever reason, and marginalization based on, innate things is the point. Not marginalization based on you're a Nazi and you're marginalized. Well, that's an opinion you have. That's okay. If you have a shitty opinion, you could be there's social currency. We understand social currency exists. However, there's no social currency for being trans. You're trans, right? That's a natural state of your existence. It's not something to be held against you. And we should do everything we can to normalize the idea of your identity, and that's okay. That's all that is. Did I invoke Marx one time? Do I have to invoke Marx? I could be a capitalist and have those same opinions. I could be a hardcore capitalist and support every woke thing. There's literally no linkage at all between Marxism and woke anything. I could be a hardcore capitalist. The only thing that would be different is that I would have a dissonance about how to help poor people. But you just said that woke stuff was irrespective of class. So, I mean, like, it doesn't even really apply.
And there is definitely this idea among some elements of the left that there is no war but class war.
No. A lot of things exist due to class. This guy doesn't really understand the concepts behind these things. So the idea of looking through a lens of class initially to try to understand someone is to see if their class plays a role in, let's say, if they have bigotry, right? Does class play a role in someone's bigotry towards black people? Yes, actually, it does. Typically, not always, but typically. And it's like hard stuff to explain. Like, a poor white guy might be racist, but, like, there's a socialization involved with poor white guys that are racist that includes, like, well, at least I'm not an N-word. It's shit like that, right? Where you could still class someone lower than you within the hierarchical structure of class itself because of the way we stress the importance of class and the importance of wherever you're stratified at, right? And so it can manifest in ways that aren't distinctly class, but that have class involved with them. And I mean, there's obviously tons of places where class plays a huge role in whatever's going on. So, the we built this country nonsense, right? The sort of like, we don't want our neighborhoods to become, different culturally. You know what I'm saying? That kind of shit. HOAs are a great example. Fucking cops are a great example of, like, all the shit. So, I mean, it plays a role, but it's not always class.
However, if you take Marxist theory and apply it to the social sphere rather than the economic one, you get identity politics.
No, you don't get identity politics when you... Okay, so do you think that someone like TPUSA that trots out Candace Owens, specifically because she's a black woman, do you think that they invoke Marxist theory when they engage in identity politics? If the answer is no, then you're wrong. Like, see how fast that was? See how easy that was? Oh, look, Blair White, she's a trans person, but also she says things that right-wingers use. I guess we'll use her as a token. That's identity politics, specifically political clout gained due to specifically your identity. It's not because Blair White says anything particularly interesting. She doesn't say anything different than anybody else. She's just also trans, so you can go and look and be like, look, a trans that believes the thing I believe. And then that's identity politics. That's literally what you do. Do you think they're invoking Marxist theory when they do that? I mean, it's just so stupid. Windchanter, I want to thank you in chat. This community has helped me be fully aware of and come into my repressed sexuality. Hey, no problem. I'm glad that you're happier to be you, That's good shit. This guy doesn't understand anything.
You get woke shit. You get intersectionality.
What's intersection? Define intersectionality. He thinks intersectionality is bad. Define it.
In fact, if you take like a women's studies class in university, one of the first things you learn is that the Marxist conception of class and class warfare is simply one bar on the cage of intersectionality.
The cage of oppression in 1997? Blame, bash, ignore, stereotype, minimize, project. Heterosexism, classism. Well, see, classism is one bar here. Ableism, racism, ageism, sexism, Eurocentrism. I don't know what any of this shit is. But it's from 1997. Bisexual and proud of it. Nice.
Alongside race and gender and sexual orientation and all these other things. It is very easy to see how woke shit is the natural end result of Marxist theory.
You don't need Marxist theory to get to woke shit, though. That's the point. You don't need it. It's irrelevant. I don't even know what woke shit means. Intersectionality is not inherently Marxist, nor does it originate in Marxism. I know. This doesn't make any sense. These are not things you need. Again, you can be a capitalist that believes in intersectionality. All intersectionality is it is admission, it is recognition that all people that face any kind of otherism or any kind of why can't I think of the word? The fact that you're a minority, the fact that you might be gay, the fact that you might be anything, the fact that you share in these aspects of society in which your inherent existence is somehow made to be considered less than. Intersectionality says, hey, I also experience a form of this. We could work together for our own goals. It's oppression. It's not the oppression Olympics, unlike how this guy thinks. It's just oppression in general. How are you oppressed, and to what degree are you oppressed? What degree are you marginalized? And then so a gay man and a black woman are both marginalized and oppressed in very different ways. However, there's enough crossover in their experience to where one can hold the hand of the other and excuse me, and say, hey, I'm gonna walk with you and support you because of intersectionalism. That's all it is just support in solidarity because you can empathize with another person. Is empathy and solidarity a bad thing? Like, are these bad qualities to have in humanity? What's the hang up someone has with intersectionality? I would love to ask this person. Short, fat otaku, what is your problem with intersectionality?
Shu also said in her stream that she doesn't see the problem with socialism, even though she's not a socialist herself.
Correct.
People who think socialism is some, like, authoritarian thing. It's not. And so when they think of that, they think of, like, the tankies. They think of, like, Stalin and all that shit, and it scares them. And I think that's where these people are coming from. But they're completely different ideologies.
And the honest...
So, yeah, someone like Stalin would be... well, Stalin is a fascist. Well, I guess tanky. Yeah, Stalinism. Yeah, you know. But I think you'd be more like Lenin. Leninism would be top left, where you'd get the hardcore authoritarianism is not a good thing, but you could still want to have. It's basically the up or down is the method by which we achieve our left or right. Right. That's all that is on the axis. The up and down is how we achieve the left or right. It's just not simple as left or right, and that's why it's an axis. But I don't know why this guy is lost on that.
Truth is, no, socialism is just as bad as fascism.
Oh my fucking god!
Multiple reasons. Firstly, if you read the theory, and I have read the theory, I have read Das Kapital. If you read the theory, you understand that the political system and the economic system can't really be disentangled.
What?
Comparing Nazis to socialists is, like, not valid at all.
It's not.
At all. No. Workers' rights and shit like that compared to people who want, like, racial purity and all of this shit are completely different things, and Dev keeps doing it. Like, I'm friends with Dev, but he keeps conflating the socialists to the Nazis.
Socialism isn't the government does shit. Socialism is not workers' rights.
Okay.
It's not healthcare.
Okay.
Socialism isn't an intact capitalism with safety nets. Socialism is property expropriation.
Socialism is property expropriation. Okay. If you look for socialism, right? And I hate to Sargon on here when he just looks at a thing out of context, but I don't think you're going to see. A big difference here. So, a political and economic theory of social organization which advocates for the means of production, distribution, and exchange should be owned or regulated by the community as a whole. This is different than just property Come on, dude. Come on. Man, Shuan Head really has a problem with that trash can. I know, right?
It is seizing the means of production.
Lizard Snake, thanks for
I
following.
get it. The old Marxist conception required a revolution. It was going to require a violent uprising of the worker to steal all of this property.
Not socialism. The bridge between socialism and communism needed that. I thought he said he read it.
And there are new versions of socialism. You read your Chomsky, you see the libertarian socialists out there. And it's not going to require a violent revolution, guys. We're just going to vote it. You're democratic socialist, you're libertarian socialist. You're just going to vote yourself property. Well, that is still fundamentally tyrannical.
Oh my god. Oh my god, dude. All right, let's talk about the tyranny of socialism. So, what is tyranny? I guess we should look up what's the official definition of tyranny. Cruel and oppressive government or rule. Okay, so it's cruel. So, cruel and oppressive. Who is it cruel and oppressive to guarantee the means of production, to guarantee certain inalienable rights such as healthcare, shelter, food, water, etc.? What is it cruel to tell a billionaire to pay taxes that are reasonable? Like at a heightened rate, like based upon their income? Like if billionaires paid a 99% tax on their, every dollar over 100 million or whatever, they'd still have 100 million plus dollars. Do they need more than that? What's the point? What part is cruel? I allowed you to have $100 million is cruel? Where's the I don't understand. We have different definition of cruelty in that scenario. Is it cruel to demand that the top echelon of the community provides for the smaller echelon of community? I say smaller monetarily, larger in human numbers. So is that cruel? I feel like it's cruel to abandon these people merely for existing in a geographical and socioeconomic state that doesn't allow for them to be the top 1%. Wojak, if you ask rich people to be less rich, they won't take all their wealth and leave the best country on earth. True. They're the ones stealing the country. I know. This doesn't make any sense. This is not how cruelty works.
Because let's say you own a business.
Okay.
And let's say you've hired some workers.
Okay.
And the workers all say, okay, we're going to vote that we own your business now. And the owner says, no, fuck off.
Okay.
I founded it, however many years ago it was. I was working on it before I hired any of you.
Okay.
There is no good reason why you should own it simply because you work here. And at that point, the democratic socialism, the libertarian socialism completely falls apart.
No, it doesn't. Here's why. Because in your head, this business is probably like a small business. We use the bakery a lot around here as an example of that. I don't think there necessarily needs to be a situation where the baker who, where the baker, my thing came undone, needs to necessarily give ownership to the people that help distribute the bakery goods, right? However, the point of the conversation is not that, we need to own everything we're a part of. You can, like something like McDonald's makes a lot of sense. Something like these large corporate structures where they make billions and billions of dollars, and it just stagnates at the top of the fucking food chain here. And these people make less than a living wage. It makes a lot of sense for them to be part of the revenue share, because they're the ones that create the revenue, right? They're the reason that you can do that. And so the conversation is not, we should steal this business from the fucking baker. The conversation is the baker ethically treating their worker? And that's the point. If you are being ethically treated, there are just hierarchies. Surprise! In the pursuit of eliminating unjust hierarchies, the only hierarchies you have left are just ones. And I would say that if you are in this scenario, we use the baker. If you're an artisan, you have a specific job. Like, that is something that no one else can do. I'm fine if you make, again, this sort of idea of compensation based on the intensity of the work, the difficulty of the work, and the skills required to do the job. It makes no sense for LeBron James to be sitting on the bench, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? We're not benching LeBron James because we want everyone to have equal time on the basketball court. That's not what we're talking about. People still excel under socialism. People are still excellent under communism. These things can exist in anarchism. You still have people that are very good and they have an aptitude for things. There's no reason for me to be, on your track team just because we want equity. That's not what equity is, okay? Equity would be making sure everybody on the track team is compensated ethically. That's all. That's the whole thing. Not saying, and maybe let's use the LeBron James example because you guys know who LeBron James is. Whether you watch sports or not, you know the name LeBron James. He plays basketball. That's all you need to know about this. LeBron James, being as good as he is at basketball, deserves more than I deserve to get paid for playing basketball. However, if I am deemed good enough to be a professional basketball player, I should be compensated ethically. That's the only point. The only point. Now, again, in the case of the NBA and basketball, I do think the players deserve a revenue share. And they do have I think they have 51% revenue share or something like that, which is fantastic. So it shows that they can, these types of structures do work. But again, we're not talking about stealing a business from like a fucking low tier worker here. More than anything, this would help in retail spaces. We can look at Costco's example of all their employees are part owner. This also, why am I blanking on Winco? Winco is a co-op that's out west, and they make money based on their whole thing. So, yeah, that's cool too. That's exactly. Winco is a cool place, and I like to shop there when I could.
Because either you have to give up and go home, or you're going to have to use violence to take the property. Now,
no, that's not how it works.
Maybe that's state-backed violence. And if that's the case, you're going to become the Soviet Union a whole lot faster.
Oh, he so fundamentally misunderstands all of this.
Maybe it's union-based violence. Maybe it's a grassroots uprising by the workers. But all of these things are still theft. And they're all going to lead to an authoritarian state.
No. That's not what authoritarianism is. And that's not how it works. God. Changing how we structure businesses is not authoritarian. It's just not authoritarian. Saying that the workers deserve a kickback based on their production is just equity. Not allowing 100% of profits to go to one person or a collection of people that happen to be in the management of the business is not tyranny. It's just ethics. Can those people make that without those people working on it. No. Why do the people work on it then? Because they need to survive. It's literally a survival gambit. That's all it is. You're literally trading people's actual physical labor, their human bodies, in exchange for enough to survive. That is not ethics. That's not an ethical way to run a business. I'm not saying that your canned pickles factory has to have 100% ownership from employees. That's not at all what I'm saying. It's not what a lot of people say. A lot of people agree. Like if you work really hard on something, and you get to a point where you're I guess wealthy enough, or you just have the means to start distributing, say, your pickles outside of town, right? No one's saying, well, now that you can do that, everyone should own your pickles. No, what they're saying is ethical distribution of wealth among everybody involved. You at the top can still make more money. There's a hierarchy. Again, it can be a just hierarchy. We can understand that. And all it would take is laws on the books that say if you are a certain size business, right, that everyone, you start to take a cut, right? Like maybe an owner can be a millionaire or something. I don't know what it would be. But after the first $1 million, the next $1 million goes to workers. And then after that, you can start to 50-50. I don't care. However you want to work it out, whatever law on the book. I can think of a million ways to make an ethical distribution of your pickle plant. You know what I'm saying? No one has to steal anything. All it's about is making sure that we're above survival wages for everybody else. And everybody think about the quality of work you're going to have when you have people that are properly compensated for what would otherwise be a menial job.
Like, I've read Chomsky. I had to read him in school. I know you don't want to hear this, because he's well regarded among the left. He's considered an intellectual. People love this guy. But when it comes to his libertarian socialism, if ever seriously put into practice, it will end up like its authoritarian brother.
This guy's brain dead.
Because you will always have to use extreme amounts of force to make people play along with it.
You really don't. You really don't have to use extreme amounts of force. Would he consider right now? It's very interesting. Do you not consider the threat of death under capitalism if you don't participate in wage slavery for most people? If you don't participate in wage slavery in America, the threat is death. Does he not consider that authoritarian? Is it because it's sort of this like passive, you die in poverty, no one comes there with dressed in black and shoots you in the forehead, or what? Buck Buku, thanks for following. Like this is really, really dumb. This is not the way this works.
And this is coming from a former Chomsky fan, man. I had stars in my eyes about him once too, until I decided to read all theory, not just socialist theory.
It didn't seem to take. None of this seemed to make any sense to you. I feel like he read Ayn Rand once.
In the same way, she was also wrong about fascism.
And I know people are like, wait, but Nazis were socialists. Yes, because Germany was socialist. Or, well, they were, they had like healthcare and shit like that. So, yeah, Nazis they adopted the socialist thing because that was what was popular at the time, like to get into power.
No, the fascists did not simply use socialist rhetoric until they got into power. You're probably referencing here Hitler's 25-point plan, which is...
Oh, fuck. Oh, God. They took the term socialist. It was incredibly selective in the way that it would be distributed. This is not actual socialism. This is I mean, it's basically just cronyism. It's just cronyism.
Which was put up by the Nazi Party, I think, in 1923. And it had a lot of socialist points on it. Like, it talked about old age welfare, it talked about care for the middle and lower classes, it talked about the expropriation of land for the purposes of public utility, it talked about outlawing child labor and education programs and things like this. Mm-hmm. This was not simply a ruse on behalf of the fascists. These are actually core components of fascist policy.
They're not core. Oh my god, core components of fascist policy when you are using populism to gain the power needed to exert your fascism. But do you think those education platforms were for all Germans? Because they weren't. They were fascist. It's cronyism. Just because you're part of the in-group doesn't make it socialism. Jesus Christ.
Because, again, due to the old
I don't know what the
conception
PK
of the left and its
podcast
relation
is.
to hierarchy. This is a topic for another video, but a lot of people on the left believe that liberal and fascist economics are identical because they're both capitalist. And
do a lot of people on the left think that liberal and fascist politics or economics are the same? Is that a thing? His argument stinks more than Jeremy's pissy basement. Aww.
that's just not the case. There actually is a distinct fascist theory of economics.
Yes, it's cronyism. It's just more cronyism.
Separate from both liberalism and socialism. But again, that's another topic for another time. I mean, there is a reason why in the Doctrine of Fascism, Mussolini wrote about his political opponents, including socialists, being reactionaries, or how they wanted to seize the means of production, and it was not simply co-opting their language. There's something deeper there. And I know where you get this definition of fascism. It's where all of BreadTube gets the definition of fascism that they use.
Okay.
It's from Umberto Eco's Your Fascism essay.
Nope! Not where I get my fascism from. God damn it. Okay. Oh, you've never heard of it? Yeah, because it doesn't fucking matter. Oh my god. Fascism is authoritarianism and conservatism mixed together. That's what fascism is. I don't need this Umberto Eco's fucking take on it. If you want to, usually fascism also involves scapegoating because of the authoritarianism, because you're trying to get conservative viewpoints, which are typically unpopular with most people that are in the out group. Shocker. Typically, like, you know, Candace Owens exists. Because you have to sort of. You have to drum up fear to make sure conservatism stays. Like, that's how conservatism works, is I don't want to move forward, left, because X is fundamentally scary. They won't say fundamentally scary. They'll say is a threat to our culture, like trans people. They're just icky grossed out by the thought of you having a pee-pee and wearing a dress. That's pretty much the whole thing. Sorry, trans men, you are yet again erased out of the conversation. They are not thinking about you. They are only thinking about those of us with peepees and how we just don't want them. I don't know. I say we. I'm not trans. But it's just one of those things, man. Like I don't need to read theory to understand fascism. It can help, but this isn't the day. This isn't how it works. Just another day in the life of a bussy owner. True.
And I had the displeasure of reading Umberto Eco even before I became a YouTuber, I think. In the class where I read the essay, Fascism, my political science professor said, there's a reason why Eco is known outside of Italy for his novels and not his political.
See, the point is it could be a foundational text. It could be interesting world build. This is fine. The point is that you don't need it. This isn't where people get their idea of fascism. Like, we're not reading this theory and going like, yep, that's it, that's the one. It can apply, that's fine, but it's independent of understanding this. This is the whole point. Whereas he goes, this is where the lefties get their beliefs. No, they don't.
Political analysis. The 14 points presented in Fascism are so ridiculously broad that any authoritarianism, fascism or otherwise, can meet this criteria.
Any what can meet this criteria? I just want to double check what he said there.
Not his political analysis. The 14 points presented in Fascism are so ridiculously broad that any authoritarianism, fascism or otherwise, can meet this criteria.
Any authoritarianism? I would tend to disagree. So like a tanky isn't going to necessarily new speak. Culture tradition, probably not a big part of that. The rejection of rationalism, probably not a big part of that. The cult of action, distrust of intellectualism, probably not a part of that. The rejection of analytical criticism, not a part of that. The entire left-leaning, like even tankies, like they're trash, but they're close to fascism, but they're far top left people are. This is how they got here, right? Is analytical criticism. The appeal against the intruders, like the Mexicans are coming to get us. No, it's more like insurgents here. The appeal to frustrated, fearful middle class, maybe? That's one I think we could have. The obsession with a plot against the people, no. Well, unless you're fighting fascists. But again, that's fascists that have a plot against... Okay. The building up and tearing down of national enemies, no. Principle of permanent struggle... Not really, because the idea is here is this is a direct way to fix this symptom. Mass elitism, nationality as ultimate privilege, that is obviously not the case. The cult of heroic death, no. Machismo, no. Notion that leader incarnates the will of the people. Sometimes an authoritarianism, yeah, I think so. So, and then newspeak can mean fucking anything. So, I'll give you 3 or 4 of these for all authoritarianism on the left, but fascism has all of these, like every time.
Even some non-authoritarians can meet this criteria. And if
all of
this
them
list is how people on the left identify fascism, it is no wonder that they see fascists everywhere.
Did I mention any of these? Besides the fact that you have to be conservative, because that's what fascism is. Cult of tradition would definitely have to do it. Rejection of rationalism, yes. These are facets, but I mean, like, even beyond that, there's more to it. I don't know. Just fucking weird.
It's no wonder that you think Trump is a fascist. And frankly, Trump's not a fascist. He's just an idiot.
Trump... Is Trump a fascist? Trump might as well be a fascist. That's kind of the point, right? The idea is that, like, I mean, he does all the fashy things. He just doesn't necessarily realize what he's doing is fascism because he's so stupid. But you can do fascism on accident, dude. That's the point. That's the idea. Is he's a scary fascist because he's surprisingly fascist.
Eco's work in terms of political science is considered like the opposite of the gold standard when it comes to identifying a fascist. If you want an actual coherent definition of fascism, there's Friedrich Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, or Roger Griffin's The Nature of Fascism. Or if you just really like the idea of a checklist, you can just run down.
I just said okay. So I just said out loud that the fascism checklist isn't necessarily like the most comprehensive way to discern fascism, and then he said that leftists all agree that this is the case, and then he mentions other ways that you can identify fascists. It seems contradictory. Am I nuts? There are idiot fascists, yes. Surprise!
Very simply. Check out Emilio Gentile's The Sacralization of Politics. I've read these works. I've read Fascism. Admittedly, it's been a while. It was back when I was still in university taking political science. But I've read this stuff. And guess what? By all those other metrics, Trump isn't a fascist.
Why the fuck do we know everything about them, but they know nothing about us? Why the fuck do we use all their correct labels? This one's a libertarian, this one's a neocon, this one's a classical liberal, this one's a nationalist. and they just turn around and call whole ass libs commies.
Yes.
Now, maybe it's because I consider myself at least slightly left of center here, but I can, in fact, tell the differences between all the different flavors of leftism.
This guy fancies himself an intellectual. You can tell because his rant sona is sitting upon a stack of books. And I'm assuming this was probably fan art or something. Maybe he made it himself. I don't know. But this is it's starting to get to the point where I'm cringing out of my fucking life. My whole life is just cringing in on itself like a fucking black hole.
And I do think Sargon is wrong to call them all communism. There's an obvious difference between the tankies and the anarcho-communists and the anarcho-syndicalists and the libertarian socialists and the social democrats and so on and so forth. And you can't simply boil them all down to just straight communism.
Where's my rant sona, Bellum?
Because frankly, communism is the theorized, stateless, moneyless, classless society that exists after socialism has been perfectly implemented, which is itself a wildly reductionary point of view. However, the problem with all of these different flavors of leftism is that once you cross the threshold into property expropriation, like I said earlier, they all turn out the same way. To
Oh
take
my
property
God,
from
dude.
those who don't want it stolen, and to legitimize that taking beyond simple thievery, you will need some kind of totalitarian state apparatus. It doesn't matter if you call yourself an anarcho-communist or whatever. The anarcho part is ultimately meaningless. It will.
By the way, it's been bothering me when he says property expropriation, like that's redundant. Expropriation is like already property's involved in the definition of that. It just I don't know. It's been bothering me. The action by a state to take property from an owner for its use or benefit is the actual term. Like I don't know. I was double checking to make sure I wasn't just being, brainwormy. But yeah, it's he's going to have weirdly realistic feet because I say so. Hell yeah. To be honest, freeing the slaves was theft, as it's an expropriation of property. I'm glad that you brought that up. That was kind of what I was thinking. Is like there are situations where it's ethical to expropriate. I mean, there just are situations where it's ethical. Taxation is a great example of something like this. We need roads, we need water, we need things. This is I get you could say that is your property. I don't want you to look. I don't know about you. You might be hardcore anarchist, okay? But I don't think it behooves anyone to not be able to lay claim to where you live. Whether you want to call that ownership or not, I don't care. But I don't think it makes sense to be like, you can't live there, I'm moving you. No, there should be stability in someone's home life. It's unethical to take someone, a family or anything, and move them from a home when they are comfortable in living there. And that would be an excessive use of unethical practice, which I don't think anarchists necessarily want to have or believe in. So if that's part of your belief system, consider the fact that it's incredibly unethical. That said, it's also unethical to deny somebody shelter. So, like, all you got to do is make sure that you have enough space for everybody. And we do. We have plenty of space for everybody. And the idea here is that personally, I want to see a system where you can go get whatever you want, kind of house you want, okay? But your bare minimum is you're always going to have a fallback within your community somewhere to have shelter. Somewhere in your community, there will be shelter for you. Preferably, it'd be a situation where you have access to your own bed, your own small kitchen, your own place to get clean, your own bathroom, your own internet access, lights, heat, shelter in general. It doesn't have to be extravagant. It can have one fucking outlet. I don't care. Enough to have access to a phone, enough to have access to a computer, enough to have access so that you can, if you're having, some people's luck, it just runs out. Some people go through traumatic experiences, don't take care of themselves. Some people can't take care of themselves, but there's no reason for you to ever be without basic necessities. And I'm not talking about shithole places. I'm talking about places that are, at least as big as this fucking office plus a bathroom, right? Like, I'm not talking about super extravagant living spaces. I've lived in spaces smaller than this office before for being poor, and that's fine because in this situation, I'd also have access to UBI. I'd have access to education and stuff. Reza Sutra, thanks so much for the 6 months. In fact, I like the idea of, instead of, when we're students and stuff, there's all this pressure to, you want to live alone. You don't want to live with your parents necessarily. But you also, like, you kind of need to sometimes, or you have to live on campus, and then campus can be pretty fucking toxic. So what about the idea of just like you have claim to your own space? It has all the necessities you need, and you can save your money. And when you are done with college, or at some point during college, you can afford a down payment on an actual fucking living space and a house. That's glorious. And the only thing that governmental living is going to provide, when you have like literally I'm basically calling a public option for housing, which I think is glorious. You drive housing prices down. I'm just tossing that out there. Yeah. I'm actually strongly considering moving into a van. Well, I mean, if you'd like to. I would rather live in a pod thing than a van, but I don't know what your living situation's like. But yeah. Look, for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities, forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities, old Mother Nature's recipes that brings the bare necessities to life. Next time, you get one wind chanter because you've been so good today. I'm never doing that for the minimum biddies again, okay? Never. But this time it was fun, all right? This time it was fun. Absolutely agree. The right to housing, like, of course. Right, of course. This is like super easy. And this works under capitalism. It works just fine under capitalism. You want more homeowners, you want more you want people with a stronger sense of I guess what you would consider stable usage of their capital. You would want them to invest in housing rather than wasting their money on apartments when they could just have public housing. Drives the price of houses down with competition, which is a good thing, and it makes everybody just better off. Everybody's better off. Tossing that out there. Houses are better than those dirty homeless tents. The homelessness can be defeated. I could defeat homelessness if I was president. I could defeat homelessness pretty quickly. I think it's simple. It's just we're greedy. What criminals are we talking about? What are you talking about? You having a totally different discussion?
Will by necessity be washed aside in the pursuit of your own goals. All forms of socialism, libertarian or not, will eventually become the Soviet Union. The only difference is how long it takes for you to get there. All this being said, Sargon's not perfect either. Like I mentioned, not everything on the left is simple communism. There are, in fact, socialists who simply want to be socialists. They don't want to advance...
Antipodian squid! Welcome. Spread that ink around.
To the next stage, which is...
Get squirted, chat.
They want to implement a socialist society and then stay in a socialist society. I don't agree with them because that would ultimately be tyrannical and would lead to something that looks a lot like fascism.
Again, we talked about how that's not tyrannical. But think of the dirty freeloaders taking from America. Hey, I want to spend hour gargling Sargon's balls. So anyway, Sargon isn't perfect. True. CJ Oracle, I know that you're joking. So I want to talk about this, though, because that's actually, I know you said it sarcastically, but this is a big thing that people think for real. Think of the dirty freeloaders taking from hardworking Americans. The freeloader in this scenario, right, is a person that needs financial assistance. You can opt out. You can opt out of these things. Again, there's something to be said for the way that we do government housing. It can't be shitty, but we're not talking about offering people opulence. I'm not talking about having a hot tub in there or a big fucking flat screen. You can live there forever if you want, but not a lot of people are going to want to live in that small space. Also, think about the impact on Social Security. Like, old people wouldn't have to go to homes or anything. They could have government housing that's already paid for, and you could just have a caregiver, right? Or you could have, of course, because socialized medicine, you could expand housing for people that need to be under more regular care. You know what I mean? Like not like pap that just needs to like a checkup every once in a while. But that person could very happily, if they wanted to save their money and maybe use it to travel or something, instead of paying for their house, or maybe they paid off their house, maybe they're good to go, and then they can have their house, they can have some familial wealth, that's fine too. But like, there's some people that are just fucked by the system. My mom is a great example. She's gonna have trouble really, really, really retiring here. She started a career late because she wanted to be a mom, and Social Security is sort of up in the air. She doesn't have a ton on retirement. She's 62 right now, 63. And so, she's approaching that age. Like within the next 5 years, she's probably going to be out of the workforce, and it's going to be tight for her. This would be a situation where she could save that Social Security money, not have to worry about paying off the rest of her house, which she still has multiple years on her loan for, and she could sell that house to somebody that needs it, that's got more, she doesn't have a bunch of stuff, and she could spend that money traveling or something, or she could save on that money, stay there for a little bit, and then get a smaller place, because she's got kind of a big yard. I mean, she used to have 2 kids that lived there, but we don't live there anymore. We grew up, so you know what I mean. Like it just allows for a lot of options, and frankly, a lot of freedom for an American citizen to move from one place to another without having to worry about homelessness and without putting anyone out. My mom would offer me a room at her house before I went into government housing if this was a thing. I don't think I would take that offer at that point. I think I value my liberation to live in my own space more than a little bit larger living space and living with somebody else that I want to. You know what I'm saying? Like, so a lot of people can it makes just the way that we live a more malleable, more customizable situation. I would argue that the cost of rooting out freeloaders would be higher than just admit. Yeah, of course. There's very few freeloaders, right? Freeloaders aren't really things. Yeah. Was it a chud? I don't know.
However, you can't call them communists because that's not what they are and that's not what they believe. Moreover, just like how Shu says she hasn't shifted when she actually has, Sargon, you've shifted too. You keep calling yourself a liberal, but frankly, I don't think you are anymore. I think you're a conservative. And I'm not using that word in a negative way at all.
You should.
I don't have a natural knee-jerk reaction to hate conservatives like a lot of people do. You know this yourself. You know it better than me, that conservatism as a political tradition comes out of liberalism. They are two sides of the same coin. The liberals, not in terms of like the mimetic way that the term is used, like how the left refers to the libs or the right refers to the libs, but the actual political philosophy of liberalism. It starts at the same premise.
This guy really sucks. I agree.
As conservatism. Their difference is not on whether or not the state should be overthrown or whether democracy should disappear or anything along those lines. The difference is in the minutiae of how the system works. But they both start from the same premise that the system is fundamentally good, that the nation and the culture in which you inhabit is worth preserving.
Oof. Okay, so in the case of America, the system that we should be conserving is inherently racist and inherently inequitable and inherently exploitative. These are bad things. These are not good things. We should not be advocating for the extension of such a fucking system. It's not a good one. It doesn't serve the most people.
On some level, the conservatives want to conserve, the liberals want to liberate, but both still within that framework of the night watchman state. And sometimes the liberals are correct for a given situation, sometimes the conservatives are. So it's not like I'm using the term conservative as a slur.
Okay, correct about what?
I just think at this point, Sargon, that is where you fall politically. It's not bad, it's not evil, it's not wrong.
It's evil.
It's just you, and I don't blame you. I mean, you're a dad now. You've got a son and a daughter, and I know that you're trying for more, so... I only say this because it makes him mad.
His wife has one child, and he has another child. Okay. And I know that makes him mad, and that's why I like to say it.
So, like, who's not going to become a conservative under those conditions?
Pretty sure that guy called me a cuck for having the same situation before, which really I'm the cucker in that situation. Just tossing that out there.
It's not bad, it's not wrong, it's just what it is. And speaking of kids, yes, we're going to have to talk about the whole women have a duty to have kids thing. I'm pretty sure you phrase it that way because you want to trigger people, primarily. And, you know, fair enough. It can be funny sometimes.
Fair enough. It can be funny sometimes. Ah, yes, me, the intellectual, thinking making people mad is a political statement. You fucking buffoon. I cannot stand this guy. This guy he's so flat-brained. He is so incredibly flat-brained.
Because I also know that you think
Bull is a racist term. Just tossing that out there.
that men have a duty to have kids. It's not just women. But what you're appealing to here, fundamentally, is the duty to contribute to a society that has brought you up. And fair enough. I just don't think that having children is the only way that you can do that. And to be honest, I think the capitalist conception of things works quite well. If you have money, that means you've performed labor. Or if you're an investor, you've taken on risk. But for most people, it means you've performed labor. And that labor is itself your contribution. If you
have money, you've performed labor. Implying that if you're broke, you haven't performed enough labor, which is just sad.
can pay for something, that means that you have contributed enough so that you may have it. You do not need to have kids in order to justify buying your house or paying your grocery bill or whatever it is. Fundamentally, you should have kids because you want to have kids, because that's what you want to do with your life and your time and your energy. We already know how bad it can be when people who don't want kids have kids.
Remember, Jake, both Shu and Sargon are wrong. True.
How it ruins the parent's life, how it definitely ruins the child's life. It's only a contribution if you want them, because if you want them, then you're going to raise them right. And of course, the problem with using the word duty is that most people don't understand. I understand, but most people don't understand.
I understand. I understand. You might not, small brain, but I do.
That duty is not something that you're forced to do. A duty is something that you voluntarily pick up. So when you say something like...
Oh, no, it's... Okay, duty is a moral ought, you fool. If you call something a duty, you say it is a moral ought. You ought to do this. You ought to do this thing because it is morally superior to the opposite of doing that. That's what duty is. Duty is your moral obligation to an activity. And if you don't do it, you have not satisfied your moral obligation. That's what duty is. How are you a person? How do people look at you and think you're smart?
You have a duty to have children. That doesn't mean that you want the state to force you to have children. It means that you have a duty.
Explain duty, literally define duty in a way that wouldn't have force involved with it in any way. Because literally what he would say is, well, it's not the state that does it. It's like society says that you should do it. That's force, you fucking fool. Ah!
And you can choose not to fulfill that duty. It is a voluntary burden, which is the difference between duty and responsibility, where responsibility is not voluntary. When you have a responsibility, you have to do that thing. When you have a duty, you should do that thing. So
No. You ought to do that thing. It's very different. These are moral prescriptions.
I see what you're saying, but, and this has also been a pretty consistent problem, I think, is that, Sargon, you often don't properly unpack your points. Another instance of this is where you say, what is the definition of woman? Again, I know what you're saying, but most people just think you're crazy. Frankly, because your point is the definition of woman is adult human female. It's very simple, it's concise, and the left does not have a definition of woman that simultaneously includes trans women and also isn't circular.
The definition of woman is a person that identifies as such. It's A to B. It's not circular. It's A to B. That's the whole thing. That's, hey, if you are a thing, that's what you are. That's not what circles are. That is a line. That is an A to B. It is the shortest distance of things. Actually, I saw this tweet the other day. The shortest distance between 2 points is not going. Is staying home. The shortest distance between 2 points is staying home. I thought that was funny. But really, this is like, what is a woman? Someone who believes that they are that. That's fine. Now, what is a female? That's a different question, right? That would be someone who is born with the primary and possibly and most likely the secondary sexual characteristics that we would associate with someone who is female. But even more broadly, or I guess more acutely in this scenario, it'd be someone who has certain chromosomes, but even then, the possibility of none of those things happening and that person still being considered a cis female is, it's high. Like, those things happen sometimes. So, your definition literally doesn't work. If you say adult human female, okay, so what is a female? Someone with X chromosomes. Like, their chromosomes are like this. Well, no, what if their chromosomes are different? Wow. You know what I'm saying? Like, so really, it's one's very easy. And the other one is very bonkered, is very bonkered. It's burdened. It's burdened by your preconceptions of what these terms mean without satisfying all the caveats that can be applied to it, right? So in your definition, adult human female, that sounds simple to a dumb brain, but that's not what your dumb brain. So of course it sounds simple. That's not the actual answer is. You gotta scoop them gametes. But what if they don't have gametes? What if they don't have a vagina? What if they don't have the right pronouns? What if they don't have secondary sexual characteristics that are feminine? What if they're a butch lady? Right? Like, all of these things can happen. What if they have a lot of facial hair? That happens. And they're perfectly cis. Still cis. Like, all of those things can occur in a person and have. And you just ignore it because they're still an adult human female. Exactly, define female. It's not as easy as you think it is. So really, the most simple and non-circular answer is a woman or a man or anything, whatever you identify as. What is a woman? A woman is someone who identifies as such. Very easy.
I understand your point. This applies to both the duty thing and the definition of woman thing. I think you forget that you've been doing this for like 6 years. And for most people who are not this deep into it, they kind of need some concepts unpacked first. You can't simply spring a question on them and then watch as they are confused, and then you go, haha, I owned you. Well, no, not really, unfortunately. The confusion that you're seeing is not them being owned as they struggle to say something that actually makes coherent sense, but rather, it's them thinking you're insane. You also said on a stream recently that you didn't think universal suffrage was the way to go. Now, you were saying this offhand, so maybe you were just, working through an idea and it's not a firmly held belief or something. But your logic was that why should people who not net pay into the system through taxation have a vote in where those taxes go through democracy? And I get what you're saying, but I disagree. It's appropriate in the private sector for things to be a little bit more dictatorial. I know that the left-leaning types, the socialists, they're not going to like to hear that, but it's the honest truth. If you own your property, you have the exclusive right to enjoy that property in any way that you see fit.
Okay, so here's the thing. That is true under capitalism, but the argument is not whether or not it's true under capitalism. The argument is whether or not it's ethical. And if the answer is no, it's not ethical, then that's where we take umbrage. So it's not ethical. I take umbrage. Done? Good? All set? Okay.
If you own a company, you have the exclusive right to control that company, to hire and fire, to drive it into the ground if you want to. But governments aren't companies. Public property is not private property. Just as there is a private sphere because not everything is political, despite what the left will tell you, there is also a public sphere.
Give me an idea of something that isn't political or has no political consequence to it. Anybody? Maybe we can figure it out. Maybe that we can find the non-political thing. All power is political. I agree. Chicken sandwiches? Yes, those are political. Food is edible. Okay, so 3 of you used food. Chicken sandwiches, green beans, food. So the ethics of eating meat, farmer subsidies for green beans, and just food is edible in general is FDA regulation. Boom. I mean, literally all of that. We need to breathe. Okay. What about air quality? You know what I'm saying? So seawater, yeah. Again, pollution. You can talk about the borderlines of the open ocean, where that adds. You know, yeah, everything's political, guys. The heat death of the universe. There you go. That's the one.
There is a place where within those boundaries, everything is actually political. And I do think it's important that specifically within that zone, everyone has their voice heard. Because everybody has to live in the country that is created by the government that we vote in. It is appropriate for a democratic government to have universal suffrage for the same reasons that it is appropriate for a company not to. This is the unfortunate nature of being a content mill, like Crowder, or like Ben Shapiro, or like Vosh or the Serfs. And Sargon, this applies to you too.
I tried to explain the ethics of meat to my mom, and she said there was no ethical difference between killing or not killing an animal. Huh. That's interesting.
Do you recall how Christy Winters was viewed a few years ago?
She's still viewed that way. She sucks.
How basically she would constantly release videos, and those videos were always like worthy of somebody else just putting on while they play a game on a stream or something and then talking over and laughing at. That is what everyone's become, including you to an extent. Yes, Vosh and the Serfs have become this. Yes, Crowder and Shapiro have become this. Packman and Kalinsky and everyone else. And you. Everyone nowadays seems to be a constantly producing content mill, and all of their opponents simply take that content and create their own content. Easy response videos, laughs, even...
Wait. Is he critiquing response videos in a response video to 2 different people?
Even if they don't actually have any real criticism. And I mean, you and I both know. You go and watch Vosh critiquing anything, and there's never any real criticism there.
What? He's so mad. Okay. My very validating trip to the barber and not getting questioned for entering a male space as a non-male person and asking for typical male haircut. Oh, wait. Yeah. That's extremely political. There you go. It is. I can't. I can't in the whole world understand any of this. Look, Vosh may from time to time sensationalize, but he sure is critiquing things. I've listened to him enough to understand that he is actually making a critique from time to time. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes all you can do is laugh. Sometimes you don't have anything else. There's nothing there besides the dumb on the other side of the screen saying something so stupid it would be an insult to your own intellect to take it seriously and not laugh. By the way, Florida in chat, you suck. You just suck. You're really bad at like literally all this. Were you the same guy that I fucking made fun of the other day? Like, you're just really... You're bad at trolling and stuff. Like, I don't know. Like if you just want to, like, have an actual disagreement, like, just do it. I don't understand this, like... this, like, facade thing? It's weird. Also, subscribe or you're banned. Just tossing that out there.
It's usually him, like, stumbling and going, what? I don't understand. How could you possibly... Like, there's nothing really there of substance, but it feeds his base. This is not just an optics complaint, because I know you don't care about optics, and frankly, neither do I. It's more like, I keep meeting people.
I would absolutely make fun of you. What are you talking about? You aren't born a dumbass. What are you talking about? You can be dumb, independent of your natural ways that you are born. I'm not going to make fun of your ugly face. I'm going to make fun of your dumb ideas.
Good people, well-intentioned people, and you have too.
This guy is
Remember
so
our
fucking
conversation
stupid.
with
Can I be
Lilith,
done
right?
with this?
Who have
Holy
these
shit.
preconceptions about you that are completely wrong, and I know they're completely wrong, and you know they're completely wrong, but it's because you have allowed people who dislike you to interpret you uncharitably. Like, yeah, 4 years ago the SJW said you were an ethno-nationalist, and everyone could see it wasn't true. But the number of people who are saying it now has increased like 100-fold, and it's all good people who, if they knew the truth, wouldn't be saying it.
They knew the truth of what? He constantly argues on behalf of saving white babies, and he dog whistles constantly about our Western culture. I gotta be honest. This is just trash. Oh, that guy got mad. That's too bad. What a bummer.
And in fact, I think ceding ground like this has been a consistent problem with you and how you operate. I know it was you, I, and Arch who had that private conversation about compassion.
Fuck. You, I, and Arch. Do you know who he's talking about? He was in a call with Sargon of Akkad and Arch Warhammer about compassion. All right, I'm fucking done. If you guys send me any more short fact otaku videos, make sure that it's shorter than 30 minutes and he actually says something that's interesting. This guy just does, I mean, he literally doesn't understand anything he's talking about, with the Dunning-Kruger effect of thinking he does know what he's talking about. It's absolutely bizarre. I don't like watching it. It's frustrating, and worst of all, he's just fucking boring. He's just boring. If you watch Short Fat Otaku and you agree and like him, I assume you are incredibly boring. I don't think I can hang out with you. I don't think we're gonna be friends.